With the Flick, everybody. The People versus O.J. Simpson. Absolutely 100% not guilty. Ben, Alonso, Jayar. I don't love TV more than I love this. I couldn't. I get excited. I go back. I watch scenes. I said the 100% not guilty with O.J. Absolutely 100% not guilty. Everything from that period is so vivid.
Whatever qualms I had about this show, I'm over them.
You're over
I'm in.
Because the goofiness is part of it. Right. The campiness is part of the charm.
Totally. I wonder if it's more fun to watch from a point of view, because I was a kid still. I was like 13, 14. So I'm in school every day. But at the same time, you're hearing about it. And then so for something like this to play out, just the nostalgia for people who probably saw more of it than I did must be greater, because I'm loving it too, but I didn't even experience the stuff. The 100% not guilty, and as we're going to talk about the details.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely, yes. Like, and as we're going to talk about Faye Resnick in this particular episode, I'm learning more about that whole angle than I ever knew before. I didn't even know about that.
Everybody was cashing in.
We'll get more Cato before this thing's over, I'm sure. Guy Branum, the comedian who has this great podcast called Pop Rocket, had a great point where he said that this may be Ryan Murphy's sweet spot, where if you give him facts that he has to work with and then just let him fill in the blanks in between rather than just let him completely make something up from whole cloth, you get something better. And I think I can see that, where this is the truth is absurd enough that he doesn't have to gild the lily, you know.
One reason why I assume, I know you like it too, but we do a recap of it. Why I love Billions is because I love office politics, and I loved it in Mad Men. I mean, you show me a real office where people don't like each other, you know, and where there's great tension. That's why I loved the show 30-something. I didn't care about their lives. I wanted them at work. That was so the infighting, the lawyer stuff, it was just bliss. I couldn't love it more. And he's kind of like, he's going to come back from Hawaii and all his files are going to be done. It's going to be so great.
And trying to get O.J. on the phone to say, Johnny's
how great was that scene? And just did Murphy direct this episode? Do you know? Or
I didn't pay attention. I don't know.
But the willingness to let that anxiety build, he kept thinking it was over. He was gonna say it, and he wouldn't say it. And then finally, F. Lee Bailey's like,
Anthony Hemingway directed this episode.
Well, it was really good, and they let that build and build and build before Bailey's like, I think Johnny Cochran's here. I can't take it anymore.
Since we're talking about how things we've relinquished as a problem before with this show, the last time when I was on, I was talking about how I was hoping that Cuba Gooding Jr. does better, because I'm like, he's playing an O.J. They're showing it looking somewhat, but he doesn't. He sounds like Cuba Gooding Jr. not trying to be O.J. So at least in that scene, maybe it's the way it's directed, as you guys are pointing out, but it built perfect. Like the acting, sometimes the acting was over the top, sometimes it's underwhelming. That one, it pocketed perfectly.
And I thought his scene with Courtney Vance was great. When Courtney Vance is giving him the pep talk about what he meant and stuff, that you really see him come back alive in a lot of ways.
I expected Courtney B. Vance to say later to Carl Douglas or Shapiro.
Yeah, that never happened.
I didn't see that game. I didn't read about it. Somebody told me about it, right? Yeah. I thought we were delivered an important scene, because I was talking about on Old School, our podcast with Cenk last night, that, the story was overwhelming to me. O.J. was so famous, and so, I just remember, I remember day-by-day emotions. I remember emotions during the Bronco chase. I remember emotions when I saw that Nicole had been killed, assuming it was O.J., and my enormous relief when I found out he was in Chicago. Oh, he didn't do it. Oh, thank God. Why did I care so much? But I figure I'm like everybody else. Other people cared too.
Sure.
But so in our enthusiasm for the show, even though I get it, we don't dictate our pop culture, what we talk about, because one person might be bothered by it. I still have this sense of I'm delighting in it too much when he brutally murdered these two people, and I thought that scene with Fred Goldman and Kim Goldman was really powerful and good, and like a little hey, I know you're fun. How about this? Wait for this.
And I'd say, you know, I felt bad because when he walked in, I was like, oh yeah, Fred Goldman's mustache. I had forgotten about Fred Goldman's mustache. And then you get that totally heartrending scene about, oh no, this is a father who lost his son to a brutal murder and then had to deal with all this weird public stuff around. I was like, oh yeah.
Right,
that did suck, in fact,
right,
and you know,
right, not just the murder, but the mocking nature of Ron.
Right.
You know, that he was a silly, flighty person, a person of no substance. Must have been particularly.
I was reminded watching this episode. Did you ever read a book that Neil Gabler did called Life the Movie?
No.
About how more and more we perceive real life news events as though they were entertainment. And he actually wrote this book 3 years before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Which was, everybody sees as sort of the tipping point. But OJ, I think, is really where that thing begins. Yeah. And you look at this episode, they're doing fucking focus groups. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're you're filling out the card and putting the number about how much you like this character. They're treating this whole thing like it's a show that they're creating. And do you want to see this actress play the role of the lead attorney? You know, how do you feel about this witness? And that stuff is straight out of movie marketing.
That's right. It really is. I mean, it was just, the whole thing is surreal. And then, of course, their disregard for what they learned.
Right, exactly, yeah.
She was, I read a Slate article, I had to watch it. It was video.
God. Like, who does video on the web?
Well, we're on YouTube. You know it's video. Slate, you don't think you're going to have to watch a video. But an interview with Marcia Clark, because she was, she's a novelist now.
Oh.
And it was definitely interesting, because she doesn't really criticize the show.
The show is super sympathetic to her.
She praises Sarah Paulson, and she basically praises the show. She says they're missing some things. She goes, we were not blindsided by race. It was just the hand we were dealt. Like, she's like, I played the cards that I was dealt. There was no other choice there. I knew it. I knew it was going to be tough with black women. The notion that I thought I had some magic with them is not the case. I just thought, what are we going to do? This is what we have. But she also said, which I thought was really interesting, is that her perspective has changed in the 22 years, now no longer a prosecutor, because she's seeing the videos. Now we're seeing Eric Garner and reading about Michael Brown and seeing police abuse. And she's like, she talked about Trayvon Martin. She was like, they weren't even, without a groundswell of support. He goes, those cops, those prosecutors there, they weren't even going to arrest George Zimmerman, which she was outraged by. Mm-hmm. So, which was given her role as the white person against
right.
But she is a prosecutor, and she sounds like, if she'd been in Florida, she'd been like, oh, that George Zimmerman guy, I'm charging him with murder. Right. Anyway, it was interesting. It was worth hearing from anyway.
And Faye Resnick.
Actually,
my God.
Again, I like trying to see what the real life people are. Whenever I'm watching a show like this, I end up halfway on my computer, halfway on my phone, searching where are they now, what are they saying about this show, how they feel about the way they're being portrayed right now. So next is that. And of course, as many house husbands are roped into Real Housewife things, Faye Resnick has also been appearing on, I think, the Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I heard that she's like
right.
She's the antagonist on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills
2016
now.
is her year all of a sudden again.
And who knew how much we missed Larry King's old set?
Totally. I loved that was back. Connie Britton, great.
She's the greatest.
As Faye Resnick. Faye Resnick, the first biggest person. She wasn't the first person to sell her story. That woman who saw O.J. driving along San Vicente sold her story. Faye stole her book. And then just that pompous notion of,
if I could help one woman.
If I could help one wife, one girl. Oh, come on. While talking about all the coke that and then, so the same thing there. You ache for these two families who were like bad enough to have your loved one murdered, but then to be almost relegated to supporting actor status in the reality show that followed it. Just had to be.
Yeah, you become and the rest.
Right, and the rest, right, even though you're.
What I'm loving most, I think, is the absurd comedy of the Dream Team. Like, just the office politics stuff, obviously, as you point out, but just, I'm so into David Schwimmer's Robert Kardashian at this point, because he is such a goof, but at the same time, he's like, well, that's not true. That's not true. Okay, that's true. You know? and just when he says juice, it's so stupid. It's so stupid, but he does it with such heartfelt. It's like, all right, that's how they were.
This goes back to, I'm thinking, I said this last week, I said, where's the reality of how these lines were said versus the way they're portraying him now? Did he call him juice that much?
He must have.
I think he did.
So I'm believing that he must have, because that's what they're telling me, right? But I'm trying not to buy into
because
much.
the thing is, like, when you look at this performance, like, they're friends, but he's a fan.
Right.
He's a fan. You know, that's so much under their relationship. Like, he's like, oh, juice, you know.
So, when they're trying to, we'll go back to that phone call when OJ's on speakerphone and they're trying to get him to say the word Johnny, right? He called him OJ. In that he was like, OJ, do you have something to say? And I was like, oh, thank God. Right, a respite from juice. But it's good. But you're right. It's part of what's nonsensical. This whole thing was crazy.
And I'm really loving Travolta now.
It grows on you.
He's bringing that sense of like Betty Davis that he brought to Battlefield Earth, but he finally found a receptacle where it works, and in a project that isn't like crumbling around him. Because he, you know, like the way, you know, when you look at him in Hairspray, you know, or like when he did Barbra Streisand on Saturday Night Live, there's a lot of drag queen in Travolta, and even when he's playing certain men, and I think this is totally this is a drag queen, but it's a guy playing a guy, but it's that level of theatricality and pomposity and absurd, like self-taking the piss. I am having a blast watching him do it.
Watching these other lawyers complaining about the other lawyers' egos.
Oh yeah,
it's really. I mean, from Bailey and Shapiro.
Bailey on Larry King is that.
Bailey on Larry King was that was just, you know, those who say that Robert's over his head, that he can't handle it, then stop saying it. Right, that was. I mean, and you know, and all of them, every single one of these guys is this giant sense of self. And Shapiro's like, no, I can't quit the case. I owe it to the city. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, like when Alan Dershowitz is like, you know, one of the lesser, you know, sucking all the air out of the room people, you know, you're in the big leagues.
And it leads again to there was a morning show host who's like, I'm watching the OJ thing again, and people keep telling me not to spoil. He goes, but everyone knows what happened, so it's hard to spoil it because we know what happened. But at the same time, as you're watching it, as you see them put together this team, the dream team, you go, these guys can't win. They're not going to win this case. It's impossible. But we know they did. So as you're watching, you're still conflicted because, again, you get caught in a story, which is a head nod to how well they did it, because you're watching going, oh, I wonder how this is going to turn out. What? I know how this turns out. I keep forgetting.
I instantly wanted to know regarding, did Shapiro really come in with a genius manslaughter plea idea?
Probably.
You know, I don't remember that, but I now... I mean, I saved a bunch of websites that are fact versus fiction.
Right.
You know, each time I want to go.
I mean, that was what Shapiro was infamous for, was the settling.
Sure.
He's the settling guy.
Right. That's why Bailey was like, yeah, this guy, he's not a trial attorney. I mean, OJ they made the right call. They had the right guy.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying though about that it creates a sense of unpredictability. That's what the best sort of historical fiction does. Like when you look at Apollo 13, you know they're going to make it, but you're still super nervous the whole time. You know, 1776, I always point to as the classic example. You're like, are they going to sign the Declaration of Independence? How's this going to turn out? You know.
You know, and there's a genuine American hero on that on the Dream Team. You know, Barry Scheck. Barry Scheck is Rob Morrow, who's also in Billions. You know, he leads the Innocence Project. They've literally, I mean, whatever guilt he might have felt for getting OJ acquitted, right, by muddying the DNA evidence in the early days of DNA when it was easier to muddy it, and when the LA, the crime labs could have handled, they made it easy for them. But this guy has gotten, you know, dozens of people off death row. I mean, he has done right.
True. Was the hair thing true? Like that?
The number of hairs?
Yeah, definitely.
That was a thing that happened? Wow.
Well, they fought everything. I mean, part of their strategy was we concede nothing. And then you see what happened, but then the defense concedes. They concede a jury when they had preemptory challenges left. Right. And they end up with a jury the final jury was, I think, 10 women and 2 men and 8 black and one mixed and like a Aleutian something. There were a couple. There was
actually no. This does. We were talking about the how nitpicky they were about everything. The defense team, which reminded me, there was something I think I missed, and I'm not sure if it's because again when it was happening. I don't remember this, right?
Oh yeah.
Or just like when Lancito gets introduced. He gets introduced this episode obviously because they're doing jury selection, and Margaret York. Like this.
That was his wife.
That was his wife, but at the time she's an officer.
She was a high-ranking LAPD.
So at that, when she's signing something, she sees Mark Furman at the bottom of a list. I was like, wait, what aspect does this play? Sometimes there's a question I ask that I'm not sure what's happening, and obviously everyone knows because
Tune in next week.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all.
It seemed like a big moment. I was like, I think I missed something.
No, it's all true.
No, that was a nice.
But what is it about?
Foreshadow.
Something happened with Mark Furman that I'm like, wait a second, I don't know what happened.
But she didn't want to spoil his joy, his big moment of having the case. They've done a nice job of making him seem competent, but also over his head, in that. But in a sense, we get on Darden and Clark and Ito for being over their heads, right? But who at the time could have seen that this was what it was? They just thought, hey, it's a celebrity in L.A.
Right.
But there's a line there that Bruce Greenwood has. I think it's Greenwood. It's like, this is the most famous American ever charged with murder, ever. And it's not close. It's not close. Fatty Arbuckle, it's like there's no comparison. But they couldn't have.
Was that even murder?
Yeah.
It was murder? Okay.
Rape and murder. She died, yeah. He didn't do it. But they couldn't have seen the reality show aspect of this coming.
Right.
Couldn't. So, I feel bad a little bit that we get on them so much because they got steamrolled by something that I don't know that they could have seen.
How do you say somebody is qualified to do something that is unprecedented?
Right, that's right. Anyway, it's just good. We forget. Oh, Cheryl Ladd, by the way. Welcome back.
Cheryl Ladd.
Great to see you.
Dynamite.
Great to see you. Yeah, still looks great.
There was, for wrapping, was the end as Christopher Darden was introduced because she could I've got a black guy too. That last scene they're playing, I had to look up the songs only because I forgot who the artist was.
Black Superman.
Black Superman from Above the Law, because I remember the name of the song and the album, but I couldn't remember the name of the group. So it's obvious that song came out in '94, so it was perfectly appropriate for when it happened. I used to love that song as a kid. One of the songs you listen to and you don't let your mom hear it. Did you listen to it? So that's one of the songs. And as they broke into it, I was like, oh, this has to fit perfectly with what something is about to happen here. And then even OJ leaning over, we're thinking of black guy. It was perfect. So it really set the stage for why, when everyone already thought this was a racially charged case, they go, oh yeah. Then they said, and looked at that.
Cochran has too.
Yeah, Cochran too.
But I love that sort of moment of between lawyers understanding. All right, you're gonna do this.
Behold,
we can play too.
Maybe they should have ended the episode with the song they started with. Gonna make you sweat.
Oh yeah. They're in the club, yeah.
Anyway, great stuff. By the way, OJ's not watching it in Nevada, and they don't get FX there. We learned this from the Page 6 thing. But a guard tells him he hears about it from the guards, and the guard said he hears about it from Chloe, but that couldn't. Chloe says she didn't watch it. Kim does watch it. I don't know whether they're in contact with OJ. That would certainly surprise me because it's their mom's best friend who was murdered. But he has his nickname at the prison because his head is so big is Bobblehead. And OJ says Cuba Gooding Jr. is not big enough his head's not big enough to play him. And the Native American inmates at the prison call him Buffalo. Also, anyway, I follow Kim Goldman on Twitter, for whatever that's worth. She's great and worthy, and I feel bad for having to go through this. But I love the show. Thanks for watching. See you next week.